Welcome, everyone, to the regular meeting of the City of Morgantown Board of Zoning Appeals. Please turn off all cell phones or other devices that may disrupt these proceedings. It is the duty of this board to consider requests for relief from the requirements of the city's zoning regulations, to consider conditional use permits, requests, and to hear administrative appeals. The board conducts business in the following order: review, amend, and approve meeting minutes from previous meetings, take up unfinished business, move to new business, and then conclude with announcements from staff. Each request is heard in the order that it appears on the agenda. For each conditional use and variance request, following is done. I will introduce the agenda item, and the planning division will present the staff report, which may or may not offer a recommendation for each case or request. The applicant agent will be asked to present their justification for their request, which may include questions by members of the board. We will then open a public hearing to hear testimony in support of or in opposition to the request. Rules regarding public testimony are as follows. Anyone wishing to testify during the public hearing may do so once recognized by me, or may, in lieu of oral testimony, submit written testimony to the chair. All recognized speakers must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record, and speak clearly and loudly into the microphone. All comments must be addressed to the board, should be relevant to the application, and may not be of a personal nature or personal attacks. All speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the speaker, that time will not be counted toward the total 5 minutes. If there is a large number of speakers, including many who are part of groups or organizations, I may, to avoid repetitive comments, elect to ask for a representative to speak on behalf of the group or organization. Speakers are notified that irrelevant comments or comments of a personal nature or personal attacks may result in the speaker forfeiting his or her opportunity to participate in the public hearing. I may elect to recognize the applicant agent at the end of the public hearing to provide rebuttal or additional comments or further explanation, which will be limited to an additional 5 minutes. If members of the board have any questions of the applicant agent, that time will not be counted toward the total of 5 minutes. After all testimony is heard, I will declare the public hearing closed, and no further public comment will be permitted. Uncivil, unruly, and/or disruptive behavior at any time during this meeting is prohibited and will result in removal. State law requires the board to consider findings of fact for each conditional use and variance request. The request cannot be granted unless a majority of the quorum present, and we do have a quorum for the record, present finds in the positive of all of the findings of fact. The board may elect to continue the hearing to another date if it needs additional information. Applicants and requesting parties will be notified in writing by the planning division of the board's findings and conclusions. Regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Monongalia County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification from planning. Any work done relating to decisions rendered by this board during this 30-day appeals period is at the sole financial risk of the applicant. Thank you for your consideration and respect for these proceedings and the opinions of all meeting participants. Let's do the roll, even though I stated there is a quorum. We have a quorum, but let's do the roll. Ms. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Schonberger? Here. Mr. Benison is present. Mr. DeWitt and Mr. Plyer are absent, but we still do have a quorum. All right, so does anyone have, I have one request regarding meeting minutes. It was the, I forget the case number, but it was the, actually, I'll get back to you on that. But I do have one correction that I'd like to just state for the record, but we'll take that up later.
Okay.
Because I don't have well, are they actually, wait a minute, let me see if I can find it quickly.
Or you can make a motion.
It's the,
Oh, go ahead.
no, that's all right. It's on page 12. or it was in the digital, or the, okay. Yeah, it's still on page 12 in this packet. So I confirmed, it states, Benison confirmed that the variance is for interior. This was for the City Neon, for, on High Street, the 485 High Street case.
What paragraph are you on?
So it's right below the description, and then it states, Mr. Yeager read the staff report, and then it's the paragraph right below that. It's phrased variances for interior. And I think what it's meant to read, and maybe the audio was, I don't know, it was hard to hear, but I think it's for exterior illuminated
Yes.
lighting for the signage. I think that's how it should, that's
Okay.
what's meant there. So just internal illumination for the exterior lighting.
Benison confirmed that the variance is for exterior illuminated lighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted, sir.
All right. Anyone? Nope. Are you all set with regard to the meeting minutes from previous meetings? Yep. All right, we're all set. All right, so moving to new business. The first case we have is for conditional use. It's referenced as CU 24-06, Mohammed and Abdul Tarabishi. Am I pronouncing that correctly? All right. 1433 Dorsey Avenue, request by Mr. Tarabishi for conditional use permit approval for a school K through 12 private use at 1433 Dorsey Avenue as required by section 1331.05 of the city's planning zoning code regarding permitted land uses. City Tax District 9, Tax Map 48A, Parcel 12 in the R1 Single Family Residential District.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do you have a?
Yeah, absolutely. So the applicant purchased the above referenced property in your packet from the Mon County School District in 2023. According to the applicant, the subject property was previously home to some administrative offices in the school district's Head Start program. Right. This was verified through a Google imagery search, as well as being confirmed by staff and speaking with the administrative office at the school district on May 28, 2024. Up on the screen, you can see where the subject property here outlined in yellow. That's the map on the left-hand side. The map on the right-hand side shows the zoning map, and you can see that the blue star is the property that the applicant owns and is requesting the conditional use permit for. The area to the right or to the northeast is zoned B2, and all the area shaded in that light yellow color R1. Where there is no shading, that is actually in the county and not in the city's corporation limits. So it's kind of in and out in that particular area. Mm-hmm. And then this is a picture of the facility there looking eastbound from Dorsey Avenue and looking at the front of the building. Mm-hmm. The applicant seeks to make the space available for a school K through 12 private use. In doing so, the applicant is requesting conditional approval for said use in accordance with Article 1379 of the city's Planning and Zoning Code. While the applicant has been in contact with several prospective tenants, the total number of classroom spaces available is 3, and the total number of potential employees is presumed to be approximately 6 people, according to the applicant. After review and in your packet, please note the following parking requirements for the proposed use based on the description provided. K through 8 requires 1 space parking space per classroom plus 1 space per employee, and grades 9 through 12 require 1 space per 4 students plus 1 space per employee. According to an aerial view of the property via Google Maps, there are approximately 13 parking spaces that are striped on the parking lot. There may be more available, but in terms of what is actually marked on the ground, there's approximately 13 spaces with 1 ADA accessible space. And that will conclude staff's report.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Yeager at this time? Do we have a representative for this case? Please approach the podium, state your name and address. And then our AV person has requested that you speak, maybe a little higher than you're accustomed to speaking at the courthouse. Just so that it records properly.
sitting over here. So, you guys probably recognize me from a few months ago when, we acquired this property months ago when the Board of Education was listing actually this property and the one on High Street that probably you guys are a little familiar with, to be planned a charter school. So at the time, basically, we were looking at both properties as a potential site for the charter school. When the decision was made to, for the charter school group to say, to choose the bigger facility,
Right.
Since I bid it or went to the auction for both properties, me and my father, we kind of decided to go, to take that off, and we bought it, for ourselves for the purpose of renting this out as, potential school, daycare, since this area of town doesn't have, to my knowledge, that I found any daycare. Since then, we did apply at the same time that we submitted 2 applications to Mr. Yeager back in October. For this property, we were thinking maybe we should just go for rezoning from, for a B2 at the time, because the adjacent property was a B2. It went through, Planning Commission, approval 6-1, 3 meetings, I guess it was a requirement for the rezoning, and for some reason, the last meeting, I wasn't there, they asked a few questions, because I assumed it's gonna be approved, because it was approved tremendously, in favor, so I didn't show up to the last meeting, and of course, not going into details, it was not, I didn't get enough votes to get it approved for B2, so I said, so Mr. Yeager, I am up, he suggested to me to apply for B1, although the adjacent property is a B2, so it would be like 3 different colors of shading, but that's a different discussion for the Planning Commission, which I won't, bother you guys with the details, but I'm doing 2 applications, one through you guys to, hoping to get approval to use it as a school, and also a B1 through the Planning Commission, because our understanding, they would give us a unanimous vote, hopefully, if we get it as
For the
B1.
zoning district
For the zoning
change.
district, yeah. So the reason why we still have to, I wanted to go through, because one of the potential candidates, when I was waiting for the B2 to get approved, were, been approached, like they would want, want this facility, which is the Christian Academy, who was not far away from there. They approached us, and they were interested in it, so, and kind of that put us on a hold after the denial. So I'm hoping that, if we get that, I can approach them back, and there's also another potential candidate. So right now, I don't have a rental agreement with either candidates, but it's either going to be a regular school or a Montessori school. The Montessori school, people seem a little bit more interested because they can combine classes like 1 through 3, 4 for 6. So Montessori is a little bit more flexible, and so this is basically, I don't want to take a lot of time because I know we have a limited amount of time. So this is basically what I'm trying to do, is at least to get it hopefully approved to be used as a school. The previous use was, part of the Board of Education. Since Board of Education is a county entity, for them, I guess, didn't have to go through Board of Zoning, so for them, R1 or B1 didn't really matter because they're a county entity and they can do this. So as a private entity, we have to go and get your approval.
So your intention is still, the primary use will be as an educational facility, not daycare? And I'm only asking because I'm wondering, if you intended to develop it as a daycare, would that change in terms of the relevant regulations?
Well, the parking requirements would certainly change, but in terms of what process you'd have to go through to permit the use would be probably different. So for example, in the B2, daycare facilities of a certain caliper are permitted by right. So as long as you meet all other specifications, you can get a certificate of occupancy to occupy the building. But in this particular case, a private school requires a conditional use, as well as the reuse of an old school requires a conditional use, and that's why the applicant's here requesting that.
Right, because and then with respect to your potential rental agreement, you're still the owner-operator, because the conditional use goes with the, not with the facility, but, right?
It runs with the land.
Okay. And so the rental agreement has no impact on the Christian school having to come back before us
The board has
for a
heard,
separate,
in recent times, the conditional use permits have usually been associated with a tenant, right? Somebody going into a particular space and then wanting that conditional use, but that's not necessarily required.
all right.
Yeah, it was my understanding that either applicant, right, or a tenant can go in front of the BZA. Is that-
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
To a rental agreement with the Christian school, helping both you and them from having to come before this board.
I see.
Just verifying that the conditional use goes with,
There may be some other review process that would be applicable, but if the conditional use was granted,
through planning, though,
The-
more likely.
the tenant would necessarily have to come back to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Right, all right.
Yeah, just fine to have to get like a permit, what do you call it, occupancy permit.
Certificate of occupancy.
Certificate of occupancy. And this is what I was, actually, me and my father were discussing just before the board. He was like, so make sure that this is gonna be the tenant's responsibility, or not. I was like, I'm gonna, and that's what I shared with Mr. Yeager just before, when you guys come in, it's like, can we kinda like separate the two, right? Is that gonna be, I'm trying to say, is that contingency on me to meet in the staff recommendation, the part that you mentioned about the tenant meeting?
Yeah, we haven't got to that, but that'd be dependent on you and the tenant, if you get to that point, right? If improvements are needed to the space, that'll be between you and the tenant
That's
to
what I mean.
negotiate
That's
that.
exactly, I don't wanna be like, right now, contingency, because I would hate to go for a tech review meeting and then they say, oh, you changed later on. That's
Right.
what I would clarify.
And that's the reason why I'm asking some of the questions I'm asking at this time. So, and then Mr. Yeager, with regard to if that zoning district change does happen, that won't have an impact on the conditional use that we grant.
No,
Just state it for the record.
correct.
All right. Does anyone have any, did you have any further, did you want to add? I don't think I have any other questions, do you?
Let's just look through the findings of fact. Finding of fact number one, congestion in the streets will not be increased and that there is no significant change in use as the property of the Head Start school, the planned use was for a school. The building was designed and access was designed to be a school. Could you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yes, absolutely. So, as we can see, the property is approximately like 0.8, 0.9 acres, depending on the deed it says 0.9. When I measured it, it was like a little bit smaller than that. The square footage of the building is relatively, what I'm trying to get to is the square footage of the building is relatively small. And so it's basically only 3 classrooms. So if we estimated that, at most, usually classrooms run between, 20 and 25, let's say 25 times 375. The traffic generated by, on this building that has, that sits on a corner with the access road is actually, to the side on Lucky Lane, which is that smaller road. That building doesn't have like a direct access on Dorsey Avenue, but it's on the Lucky Lane, which is that road. For that number of cars, again, I'm extrapolating data from the other charter school, which is like about 2.5 times maximum occupancy we anticipate is 200. It's still significantly lower. The other thing is also the adjacent is the Mountain View Elementary School. If they are able to the roads around it's able, not to my understanding there's any congestion issues. So the addition of this is not going to be a significant impact to the to the surrounding community. And also, especially like as Mr. Yeager mentioned, like for the parking spots, it does meet the code in perspective, like when people want to drop their kids, they can able to park and, so if you're looking that into like a pickup drop-off cycle, if, I counted more like, I think they're not completely drawn because when the Board of Education, they had like a lot of,
It is a small lot, for the record. And does the traffic flow, are the spaces, I didn't have a chance to visit the site, but are the spaces located in the center of the lot, and then there's adequate space to allow for flow around the available spaces?
yeah.
Is that
the-
right?
The lot, we can pull that
So
up.
I'm
soon.
sorry for
Okay.
working on that.
Yes, the parking lot is on the periphery, so people
Mhm.
can do, if you want to do like people want to do like a drop-off, it is
A loop.
possible to maneuver, like,
Right,
people come in here, like if you want to place cones
right.
around, we can actually do that inside the
Right.
property, not impact, Lucky Lane.
Yeah.
But Lucky Lane is, what I'm trying to say is only serviced by us, the church across. Church is usually like, busy on the weekend or on Sunday specifically.
Right.
And the school and the kitchen place, the kitchen modeling place, and
Right.
the old Dollar General that now is no longer active. So that's the road. That's like
Right.
from Lucky Lane, I went from, when it leaves from Greenbag, then to us, then to Dorsey.
Right.
Was, in the old use of the site, was there this level of congestion present? Do we know?
And did they have just, in terms of the Head Start, was it just, do you know if they had a morning session and an afternoon session? Or was it maybe just 9
Yeah.
to 11 and then, because it's Head Start.
The Head Start usually, yeah,
It's
they
very
usually
different
have.
from elementary.
Exactly, they're a little different usually, correct. I do not know exactly about their times, honestly.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So you're operating on, so let's go, so 75 is what you are estimating your capacity is?
The maximum, yes.
Maximum, okay.
Which is quite a few cars if you're talking about a 30-minute window
And
for drop-off and pickup, especially with, just because of where it is. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Correct, and that's kind of what I was getting at. You've got buses. Do buses use this route for Mountain View Elementary?
Mhm.
And you've got parents dropping off at Mountain View Elementary too.
But they have their drop-off loop, so they're not like queuing necessarily on Lucky Lane.
No, they're not queuing on Lucky Lane, but they're exiting from their parking area onto Lucky Lane and turning left and right onto Dorsey.
Yeah, they can go to
So
Dorsey, or
it-
they can do a Greenbag,
Yeah, or onto Greenback.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know the total number of buses drop off and pick up from Mountain View, but it's not a small number.
And they have also, I see also their buses they have also a back road too, but I don't know.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So I guess my question is, like, this does seem to be this is a different use than what the property was before. I mean, if it's a school, you're dealing with drop-off and pickup times. Those would need to be either coordinated so that they wouldn't conflict with things at Mountain View. But 75 students, if we liberally estimate two kids per household, that's still 30 cars
30
going
cars.
in and
Right,
out.
but I think.
but not simultaneously.
Well, yes.
And actually, the other thing too, so the advantage for a private school, usually for public school, because I say that because I have one son, and my younger son is the elementary, and the older is in high school. So you know how they have like different times. Usually, like for the elementary school, they have they have it like, 8, drop my son about like, 8:40 is when they open the door, 8:35. So they have like they usually limit you with a number, with the minutes, like you have this limited drop-off time, usually for private schools, because usually the parents that want to go to work, for instance, in my situation, my shift starts at 8, so I usually have to, the advantage for me to put my kids in a private school is usually I can drop them earlier. There's usually a preschool, what I'm trying to say, that people would sign up for like a preschool hour or two, and after school hour or two programs. Usually that kind of help spread out the number for the parents that are working. It helps in spreading the traffic. So I think that's a little bit more of an advantageous position for a private entity versus a public school entity.
But from where I'm, just me looking at this here, we don't know which private entity we're dealing with. We don't know their policies and procedures. So how can we guarantee that congestion is not going to be increased?
Have you determined when the timing of their drop-off and pickup to avoid a spike in congestion?
What I can say for Suncrest Elementary, which my son goes to, they basically they open their door at about like 8:30ish. They close their door about 8:45. The pickup time is 3:30 and ends about like again 3:45. They usually have like a more limited fifth. So, but here's what we did for the charter school. Again, I don't want to be mixing topics.
Yeah, but we're talking about two different sites.
Exactly. What I'm saying. Like what we did is
they're not comparable.
What I'm trying to say is what we did is we said, high school operation time with this. We put in our
Right.
language there that that would that the approval be like contingent on. Mr. Yeager can speak more of that, that we would operate within these times, or that we would spread the time. What I'm trying to say here is we'd say, as long as we have like a non-overlapping hours with the other schools,
Right.
we can put that in the language.
I think it would have been helpful if you had included in your packet or in your information. All right, where our proposed location is adjacent to, a large elementary school, which operates in this manner.
Yeah.
And these are their hours of operation. These are their hours, their drop-off hours and their pickup hours, and any other ancillary activities that go along with the operation of an elementary school, a public elementary school.
Yeah.
And then propose your plan accordingly. In a manner that will result in the best possible outcome for all parties concerned.
Yes. So to this part, again, I don't want to fast forward to Mr. Yeager's recommendation. He does put that we would go through the review. Right, that's later on. If the tech review is basically, because I've done it, I was actually here yesterday.
Right.
Discuss with the traffic people, with all the different, there would be fire, traffic, mob, everybody would be, yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We don't have any of those parameters even in outline to help us
But he has that recommendation.
evaluate. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
No, did you want to ask a question? Go ahead. I guess that's what I'm concerned about is congestion, especially, and it's not just the adjacent school. It's, there are residences there, and because it's at the foot of Dorsey, where it intersects with Greenbag Road, just by default, there's just, the traffic levels are they're just higher. And
They are planning an improvement to this area.
right, well, yeah,
We kind of have to look at this as it is.
right.
Okay,
Because
so
that improvement
Let's also
may not come to pass, we don't know.
consider the alternative. So the alternative then, that this building wouldn't be used ever, right? And that would be bad for the city, that you would lose use of this building.
Right.
And this is not a residential building by design or by any means,
No, I mean, your proposed use is completely compatible with its
Yeah.
past use.
yes.
Yeah, we can agree with that. It's
Education.
just, we're trying to project into the future, and a potential area of concern is with regard to the traffic
Mr.
patterns.
Yeager, do you have the part of the, can you pull up also the application that when we prepared for the planning commission, when they approved us? Remember, there was like about like, that there's gonna be an improvement in the, like this traffic light's not gonna be existing anymore, it's gonna be a circle.
Mhm.
And the road is gonna get wider too.
Yeah, I think Mr. Terabishi is referring to the proposed improvements with the DOH of a roundabout going here and the traffic flow. Mhm.
Right.
And they're aware that this is a potential site because they spoke with me a couple months ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? All right. We may have other questions for you, but I think we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing now.
Pardon me? Public hearing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to open the, thank you, Mr. Terabishi. All right, so we're going to open the public hearing for case number CU 24-06. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to said case, now's your opportunity to do so. Oh, yes, sir.
I'm here for a totally different reason, but I just,
By
so
all means.
my name's Jamie Summerlin, 209 Kingwood. I'm not here actually for even this topic, but, and neither really in opposition or support of, but I do have a vested interest in that area. I have a commercial space in Mountain View on Parkway Drive, and I look right out of my window from 1101 right into that space that they're referring to when coming off Lucky Lane. And I will say that in the evenings, so this might be kind of in their benefit to this, traffic coming out of the elementary school, I can see that traffic that gets caught up there. It's usually about a 15 or 20 minute window of buses and vehicles coming out of that area, and then it clears up.
Right.
So as it stands right now, the traffic coming out of Lucky Lane from Mountain View, the buses that come out there, there will be traffic that gets caught up because the buses, they have to make that wide turn coming on Dorsey to come back up Dorsey
Right.
into Grand or wherever, towards the downtown area. But since it was brought up, and I do see that traffic every day, I could see where there would certainly be some concern. I do witness it daily, that it is about a 15 or 20 minute window of where traffic does get backed up there. But if that is, again, I can't speak to you for your guys' job, it's their responsibility and yours. If there's timing, I'm sure that could all be worked around. So again, I'm not opposing, or I'm just as a concerned citizen that sees it every day. I do witness it each day, and I just happen to be here the night you guys are speaking about it. So
Thank you very much.
Just wanted to throw that out there that I'm sure either way is going to work. So.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for your insight during that afternoon period, the rush. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to this case, CU 24-06? Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing.
Staff recommendation. After review, staff had no additions, corrections, or modifications to the findings of facts presented in the application or the supplemental documents submitted that address the standards for approval in section 137903, which are included in your packet with the application. I will make one note regarding the comprehensive plan because there is some discussion, several questions related to that. The comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2023 identified this area as corridor mixed use. And the development typologies that are generally applicable or appropriate for these areas noted in the plan included civic and institutional uses, which included schools, government buildings, and churches. Now, having said that, that's just what the plan lays out in terms of the future land use of this particular area in the community. But I just wanted to make a note of that because one of the conditions or things that the BZA should be looking at is what the comprehensive plan looks at in terms of future land use. Having said that, staff did not provide a recommendation for this application, but if the Board of Zoning Appeals approves The conditional use permit for the school K through 12 private use, staff recommends the conditions that are listed in your packet. And that will include staff's report.
Thank you very much. And let's see, do you want to have a look at, I have a question about one of the findings of fact. Does anyone have any questions about the conditions referenced on page 20? Mr. Tarabishi, I want to commend you on your responses to the, on page 27, to the or the planning and zoning code, the comprehensive plan, the measures or metrics, the compatibility statements. Thank you for your responses on that. Just, 1 through 6, compatibility with comprehensive plan goals, compatibility with district development, et cetera. Thank you for your responses.
What question did you have on the finding of fact?
Well, I had, so finding of fact number 6, this got an eyebrow raised from me. So your proposed facility will add to the school system capacity as there is classroom shortage in the city? Is that the case?
So,
That came as a surprise to me, to be honest.
when we were, again, putting the charter school hat again back, when we were looking at the charter school options, one of the reasons why the state proceeded with a charter school option because of that, capacity, because the recommended classrooms, actually, who did a really good job in doing all the research for, not for us, like for whole Morgantown, is West Virginia Academy. If we look at their application, they have like about 350 page of application, they went very comprehensive on that particular item. I don't remember the numbers to
I
exact.
guess what I'm asking is,
there's degrees
with
of capacity,
respect to the shortage, is that a Monongalia County Board of Education determination? They determined,
Not them on,
who determined that there's a capacity shortage?
that's what I want to reference there. Like, I can pull up the application for you because it's available publicly, and we used also their references when we were applying for the charter school. Again, this is, I know
Yeah,
it's-
so, what I'm asking though, which agency, made that determination? Was it like a county or
I
like
think
a
it's more like
private
the-
company was
like a
commissioned?
statistic department. I may able to pull the answer if you're gonna address something else, and I'll put it.
And that's good that you're trying to fill that need. It's just, all I'm saying is that statement came as a surprise to me.
But it doesn't answer the finding of fact.
That,
That's the blip. I guess we can just point blank ask you, granting this request will not create inadequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, parks, schools, or other public requirements in that. Why will it not create inadequate provision of these things?
So let's, apologies. So the question is why what?
I'm asking you to answer the finding of fact. Can you
which-
is there another,
yeah, because we're, again, it
finding
speaks to.
Finding of fact number 6
Yeah.
says, granting this request will not create inadequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, or other public requirements, in that, it
it's-
seems logical.
Because it's an existing, like, if we were building a new building,
Right,
we're not adding any, so the sewage requirement, because we're not adding anything, so there's no additions. What I'm trying to say, it would probably be the alternative, right? If this was a vacant building that's, not in use, it's gonna be a more of a hazard to the community, right? So it's not, so the lack of this building being occupied is a more hazardous to the community, right?
well, but if the intention's to make it a school, and it was a school, it seems like that is a sufficient answer. I think you answered it. It's a sufficient answer. You're continuing the use.
Continuing to use, yes.
Right, so it's not like
not
we're
an addition.
we're not taking this and turning it into an apartment building is
Yeah.
kind of what I'm getting at, so.
Yeah.
I would move that we update finding of fact number 6 to say, to acknowledge that we'll strike the existing answer, grant that this request will not create, granting it will not create yada, yada, yada.
Because
Because
it's continuing a former use.
It's continuing
That's
its
not
former
incompatible
use in
with the
a,
nature of
in a
the
pri-
neighborhood
in a private,
or something.
in a private, it's continuing as a school in a private capacity.
Right, but it's the same function that's compatible with the nature of the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay.
Sorry, it's been months since I've reviewed the application for the West Virginia Academy.
No, that's fine.
But it is
No,
publicly
as I said,
available.
that statement came as a surprise to me.
Oh, they did a really extremely good job. When they were applying, they had to go through the Board of Education itself. They have created the West Virginia Charter Board of Education, so their application is very detailed with all statistics about everything. So I don't just remember that time, but I was also shocked, like, okay, so there is a shortage in schooling. That's their, that was their, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate to quote different, but their information is public, so I'm not like sharing any private information that they have.
I mean, it's largely irrelevant to this application.
Yeah.
So, so the motion would be strike the language of 6 and the answer and say the existing use of the building will be preserved. So that's my motion.
And I will second that.
Okay.
So we have a motion to change the phrasing of the finding of fact for finding of fact point 6 from it will add to the school system capacity as there is classroom shortage in the city to, do you want to rephrase what you're proposing?
The existing use of the building will be preserved.
And we can make that change, Mr. Yeager, from the audio?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye?
Aye.
Do we want to say anything, so based on do we want to say anything about finding of fact 1?
No, I don't think so, because that speaks to the point that you were making. Not changing significantly the proposed function of the facility. It's consistent with the overall character of the neighborhood. That's stating the same. Did you want to make an addition to that?
I mean, do we
Or
think,
further clarify what
but
the statement is?
do we think from the testimony, from the public hearing, that there won't, well,
That statement expands on the point that you were just making a moment ago, I think.
okay. Like, do we believe that congestion will remain roughly the same? I mean,
I don't know, do we want to maybe propose additional conditions with regard to timing of drop-off and pickup to avoid conflicts with adjacent uses of adjacent land areas?
Well, I think they'd already discussed that. I think they said that goes over with,
Is the technical recs
technical
are
department
going to
with,
take care of
uh,
those?
with the city, don't they work out times and stuff, or am I?
There was discussion about that, and that's what Mr. Terabishi was talking with the public charter school that's being proposed, but there's no conditions right now being proposed on anything related to the operation of the facility.
Do we want to propose a condition stating, go ahead.
well, we haven't talked, well, go on, sorry.
No, do you want to propose a change to that finding of fact? We can. Let's take care of that first.
What,
Go ahead.
Maybe, I think these are both interrelated with each other, so what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, if we if we qualify this or make this contingent on an additional condition, something to the effect of, the technical overview will implement provisions that will serve to mitigate any potential.
I mean, well, actually, maybe as a
Traffic
as a
conflicts.
simplification, does planning believe that this is going to significantly increase traffic in this and congestion in this neighborhood?
I mean, no information was presented one way or another by the applicant. We haven't had a tech review on this, so that's why in the staff recommendations, there would be more of a discussion, because again, we're dealing with a unique situation that there is not a tenant involved. There's no proposed operation yet, right?
Right.
So when you start, I think, when you start looking at proposing conditions on times and operations, really that needs to be consulted with the applicant, because
well,
that can limit
Right.
what
We-
they're.
We shouldn't anticipate what we can't anticipate, in other
Right.
Plus, it was
words.
used as a school before, I mean.
Right. It's a,
How long ago was it a preschool? It wasn't, I know it wasn't too long ago.
It was.
Did
yeah,
it cease in
it was the
2020?
Dorsey School before.
Right.
Before Head Start, then they got Mountain View, so at some point, it was actually a school.
Right, so it's been a
It was-
school, and I know it was in use as a preschool while Mountain View was there, and there wasn't, I think we're overcomplicating a
Right.
issue where they already had a
The-
school,
if-
where a school was.
the only change in use is really just you want to build flexibility in and operate it potentially as a K through 12. So those upper grades really, to me, represents the really discontinuation or difference in use over time, just in terms of the age group of the students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Physically, the structure would not able to be like it. Maybe I
three
shouldn't
rooms.
even say K to, like, it's like gonna be only like,
It's 3 rooms.
honestly, they're 3 rooms, they're 3 classrooms.
Right.
So that's why I gave you like the maximum, 75, but they might not be even get like,
Mm-hmm.
50 or 60. So what I was gonna add, one more thing, is also, and this is maybe a question for Mr. Yeager.
Mhm.
So even if the BZA approved this as, as to be used as a school, right? As still for the occupancy permit, the school entity, not me, the school entity, would come in and get approved to be used as a school, right? So
They'd
that's
have
still.
to, yes,
yeah.
they'd have
The
to apply
occupancy
So I
for
wonder if
permit.
that would be considered under their purview of, you see what I'm trying to say? I'm trying
Yeah,
to
we do.
separate, like, the BZA's responsibility is to say,
Right.
can this structure be used as a school? And the planning,
certificate.
the planner, the city planner, can decide on the occupancy permit, because they can
Right.
say, maybe the school is not, I said 75 right now, maybe he said, no, I can only use 60. You see what I mean? Like, these numbers
Right.
I don't have. Maybe the fire marshal would tell them differently. So that's, all these findings, I guess, to be determined by their review. Like,
Right.
so I guess I came here in my mind to say, am I allowed to, this pre-existing school, is it allowed to be used as a school? If it was
Right.
if I was the county entity, the county doesn't have to, for some
Meet
reason,
that
county doesn't talk
requirement.
to city,
Okay.
but it supersedes city. But here, since I'm private, I have to.
Right, no, we understand.
We understand.
Okay, so let's steer clear of conditions. That's really
Okay.
outside our purview.
Sounds
Let's
good.
leave that to tech.
Yeah.
Well, let me back up with that. I think the tech review is meant to advise and review. So if there was a concern that came out of that said, hey, it need to be addressed, that would, I think, need to come back, unless you
Right,
delegate.
well, to this point, there aren't any significant
Right.
concerns on the part of any of the parties, which is why we don't have an advisory statement from tech. to guide us
yes,
at this
we've not had a
point.
tech review
Yeah,
on it.
so we're good
Right, okay, so let's steer clear of conditions then,
for now.
for now.
Okay,
Do you
so
want to, what about that finding of fact? Do you,
I guess my only question, and not to keep beating this horse, so we're approving, if we were to move forward with this and approve, we would be saying essentially, this could continue as use as a school and yada, yada, yada. But a tenant comes in and they have some occupancy, you know, they've got their volume, they've got their drop-off stuff here. Will that change the finding of fact then? Or would they have to come back for a separate review with us? Like,
Yeah, without having a tenant involved, right now, the BZA is only being asked, is that use still compatible and appropriate? And
Okay.
to your point, without any conditions. Now, what I've heard is a conversation about operations.
Right.
It's hard to have that conversation without having a tenant in place. So really, I mean,
But operations is at another level of specificity. In terms of the use, I think the answer to the question that you just posed is yes. There isn't a significant departure in the nature of the proposed use.
okay, that's, I think,
and
There's
just to clarify,
continuity
the BZA can ask for conditions. I know that was discussed.
Well,
but-
we have, I mean,
Right.
there are conditions already which are
Well-
very relevant, but go ahead.
we should probably approve the findings of
Yeah,
fact.
go
Yeah, we will.
Before
We were
do
just
Go ahead.
conditions.
discuss. So do we, to that end, I make a motion to accept the findings of fact, subject to the
Change on number
change
6.
that was made with regard to finding of fact number 6.
And I'll second it.
And we have a second to that motion to accept the findings of fact for CU 24-06. How do we vote?
Aye.
Approve. Do we have a motion to grant the requested conditional use for this case, 24-06?
Yes, I
Ms.
move that
Cook.
we grant the variance with the,
Subject to the
subject to the
conditions.
conditions in the, stated in the packet of the 3 conditions.
On referenced on page 20.
Right.
Do we have, I'll second that motion. So we have a motion to grant the variance for, or the conditional use request for this case, 24-06. It's been seconded. How do we vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Who made the motion in second? I'm sorry.
I made the motion.
And I seconded.
Thank you.
So, sir, we've granted your request for a conditional use for your case. I just want to state, regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County within 30 days upon receipt of the written notification from Mr. Yeager's office, usually 7 business days. So thank you very much, and good luck with your endeavor. Have a good evening. It's not raining right now.
So hurry, yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, so moving on to the next case. This next one is, this is variance 24-6. Jamie Summerlin, 209 or 209 Kingwood Street. Request by Mr. Summerlin for variance relief from section 1335.05 of the city's planning and zoning code regarding encroachments into setbacks, City Tax District 10, Tax Map 29, Parcel 560 in the R1A Single Family Residential District.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the applicant seeks to install a new porch or deck in the rear yard at 209 Kingwood, and in doing so also plans to install a new privacy fence along the northerly portion of the deck adjacent to 205 Kingwood. Here's a map that was in your packet and up on the screen, kind of showing the parcel involved, and this one is an example, unfortunately, where the parcel lines are lining up with the actual boundary lines. But if you can see here, that yellow, that blue area here, that's where the actual boundary line is between the two properties, and the applicant is requesting to install a deck and a privacy fence along that boundary line. Per section 3504 of the city's planning and zoning code, uncovered stairs, landings, or porches or decks shall not exceed closer than 3 feet from the property line. Since the proposed privacy fence would be constructed upon and with the proposed deck, the applicant is requesting a variance of 2.5 to 3 foot variance to install the deck up to basically the property line. So that's hence the ask for the 2.5 foot to 3 foot, because it would be built right up to the property line. And then here's a picture of that the applicant provided. Yep, it's on the screen showing, kind of an aerial view of what the new proposed deck would be, where the new fence would be installed here, and then also demonstrates and shows the neighbor's yard. Also included in your packet was a Google image that was screenshotted showing the backyard of the property and the current fence that was, I don't think it's there now, but was there. And obviously, the applicant is here to address any questions or concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to, you're the representative?
Sure.
Please step forward and
Yep.
again, state your name. You already did, but restate your name.
Jamie
And
Summerlin, 209 Kingwood Street.
perfect. So tell us about your
Project.
project.
So, my wife Tiffany is here with me, and we purchased this house a couple of years ago and moved into it. We used it as a rental the first year because that's the use that it was in before. We sold our place, moved downtown. We're happy to be down here. We have done a lot of improvements to the property, including a new roof, paint, a lot of interior work and things that we have had permitted and done. And one of the things that we wanted to work on was the exterior of the home. Our new neighbors, Hunter State, and they moved in, and we had the discussion a few weeks ago about us wanting to install a deck, which we had gotten permitted for the piers and everything to be installed to support it. But in those conversations, I approached our neighbor about the fence that you actually see in that picture is the existing fence that is still there.
Oh, it's still there.
It actually is there.
Okay.
That is on their property line. There was, when we moved in, a chain link fence that was on the other side of the fence on our side. So you effectively had two fences that were running there.
Oh.
And the wooden fence that is currently there is on their property based on our prior neighbors that had sold the property to Hunter. They said that that wooden fence was actually encroached onto their property, and it had been there for a long time, long before we moved in. There's a wooden shed beside of my truck there. There was a garage, a brick garage that was there that actually went out to the road, and it was in terrible condition. We got permitted by the city to have it torn down and brought the Amish shed in to replace it. It's a smaller footprint, but when we did that, the fence line is currently there, doesn't line up with the brickwork that was actually on that garage. It encroached over onto their property line prior to. What we're proposing and what we'd like to do with this new deck that we want to install is not put a second fence back up. We have signed, as you can see in the packet, a letter of agreement, a fence agreement between the neighbors to where we would install a new fence that we agreed upon with city code as far as not going above the privacy. So it's 6 feet or 6.5 feet is the height before you have to have 50% visibility above
And then,
that.
so there's lattice on top.
Right, lattice. So we did we've just looked at a 7-foot fence. 6 foot of that is privacy. The other foot is lattice, so it gives for 50% visibility. And it would be framed and attached to the deck. So the deck actually goes up to it, and it supports that. Their wooden fence that is currently on their property line would remain until we actually got the fence put in place, because they have pets that they don't want to have going out and getting loose and everything. So we would time that to where we actually would build the fence. That actually gives them back, because we couldn't build it right on where their fence is at. It gives them back 18 to 24 inches of property line that fence is actually over on right now. So they're gaining some yardage. I'm giving that back up, because right now it's just mud and weeds. So we're trying to both give them back some of their property that they have there, as well as improve the property by putting the new privacy fence in, and with our deck, using it as the framing with the permitted piers that were installed a few weeks ago by the contractor that came in. So that's what we're looking to do, and we are asking for that variance to allow us to be able to go beyond that 3-foot boundary that is from the property line, to allow for the fence to be butted up against and use the framing of the deck, and also benefit the neighbor to be able to give them back some of their property that existing fence is sitting over on. That was long before either one of us owned the property. So,
Excellent, all right. In terms of the agreement, the fence line agreement, any word on whether that should be appended to, like, the deed?
That's,
I think in the
The
document
deeds.
proposal, you mentioned that it could be notarized and, you know.
It would be
submitted, but-
recorded separately, or you could, yeah, I mean,
Just-
that's up to,
To protect you and also, you know,
When we sell it and head on greener
right,
pastures,
for
sure.
saleability, yeah, just so all parties are aware of the
Yeah.
nitty-gritty. Any
We're
other-
open to any and all recommendations on that. I mean, again.
No, this just reminds me, there was another case that we reviewed, and it just this reminds me of, it's not this, you know, there are differences, but
Right.
they did make that provision to,
Well, we
Just
felt it
to-
valuable to approach the neighbors, obviously, to, you know, as we were doing this, and they were kind enough to even help absorb some of the costs of the fencing in the agreement. Based on what our design and look is, you know, anything above and beyond what that, you know, initial agreement was, we'll take on ourselves. You know, they don't even need to, you know, absorb, but they've been kind
well,
enough to do that. So
yeah,
it's-
well, and doing, I mean, it sounds like you've done your due diligence as neighbors, and there's a mutual benefit there.
That
And
was
so
the
everyone's
goal.
working toward the best possible outcome for everyone, which is also why we're here.
There's a lot of improvement that's been done in the neighborhood. They moved in, they painted their house. I mean, there's other homes around us that are getting, you know, fixed up. It's the Greenmont area. We really want to, you know, continue to increase it and make it, you know, a better place to live. It's already a great place to live, but the more we can improve, you know, we're looking to do that. And we certainly wanted to go through the proper channels in doing this as opposed to asking for forgiveness later, because that doesn't always work. So.
Right. All right. Any questions of the
No, I was just
applicant?
going to say, I appreciate the unity and the camaraderie among neighbors. I mean, you
Yeah.
don't hear that as often as we'd like to, but appreciate
Right,
it.
right. All right, thank you, Mr. Summerlin.
Absolutely.
Let's see. So, any discussion, or it seems
we have
fairly...
to do a public.
Oh, we will, yeah. But I'm just wondering, do you have any other questions, or do you want to discuss before we open? All right, we're going to go ahead and open a public hearing for this case for variance 24-06, 209 Kingwood Street. Anyone wishing to speak in support of or opposition to? Do so now.
Hello, I'm Hunter State.
Hello.
I'm at 205 Kingwood Street. I'm the neighbor, and I speak in support of getting the new fence improved. The current fence is pretty old. We purchased it about a year ago, and we're trying to make some improvements, and I think that the fence is a good move for
Right.
basically everyone involved.
Yep.
Good deal.
And it's helping to keep your pet safe.
That's right. That was
In the
really
long
only
term,
concern.
right?
The cat likes to sneak her way through places. and
Right,
If we could prevent that for, you know,
right.
a week, that'd be great.
That's what cats, yeah,
I was gonna say,
exactly.
she's like,
Right. All right, well, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in support of or in opposition to? Seeing no one, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Yeager?
so while staff did not provide a recommendation on the applicant's request, if the Board of Zoning Appeals approves it, staff recommends that the fence line agreement be notarized and recorded with the Office of Mon County Circuit Clerk, and then a copy be kept on file in the Development Services Department, or some other mechanism to show that there is an agreement that's on file that stays with the property.
Thank you. Any
My only
discussion with
question would
regard
be,
to?
was there ever a survey regarding the line or
That's,
anything?
I was wondering that too.
Because, you know, you're saying you're giving back land, so does anybody actually know where the line was?
So I will speak to the fact that I do not know exactly where the line is at, the property line. This is based off of the previous owners that were our neighbors before. Prior to their sale of the house, they came to us and said, we're looking to get this done because the fence is over on our property. And then they said, everything's fine, we're moving on. And so it was never done. So based on where the garage and the brickwork is at for the exterior of that old garage, and
Right.
where the fence is pushed over onto their property line, it does not meet up with where that garage
Yeah,
line
you-
is at.
Right,
It
right.
just, and that garage had been there for decades. So we just assumed that, because there was an old house that you should sit back there. Answer your question, no, I do not have a
Okay.
survey, and we did not
Because
purchase one.
it was, I think you stated it was your impression that the actual property line was a few inches this side of the outbuilding, the cement pad.
Yeah, where the cement pad and there's brickwork that goes around the cement pad, and that brickwork, if we went a straight line,
Right.
there's about 12 or 18 inches or so of
Too close to his house if you ran that imaginary
yeah,
line.
it would actually, his fence would come back towards our house some, which is what we're proposing to do with this new fence, is to
Right.
bring it back towards us a little bit, because I mean, it's dead space, and if we abided by the 3 foot for both of us, we both lose 6 total feet there, and what's usable space? They use it currently,
Right.
and we want to be able to utilize that space, but, you know, I can't do shrubs or anything in there, because that just doesn't give me much
Just
room,
where
so, with the deck.
So, Mr. Yeager, with regard to the uncertainty of where the property line actually falls,
That's up to them.
is the 2.5, the requested 2.5 feet to 3 feet, do you think, is that going to take that uncertainty?
You may,
Does
just
that
want, you may
take
want to
that-
amend it to 3 foot and just, you'd be basically authorizing up to, an encroachment up to 3, up to 3 feet from the property line. Right now,
And we wouldn't know if
right now,
that's-
It's,
property
but
line.
with regard to
Yes.
with regard to making the allowance with regard to the property line and that uncertainty, it's a plus or minus 1.5 feet either way, is what I'm getting at.
I would want to make sure you're not authorizing that it be built across the property line. You're just,
We're coming back towards us. We're giving,
Yeah.
we're giving away space
So
that we
is
can.
that.
wherever that property line is, the code says that the deck needs to be at least
Yeah,
3
right.
feet away.
It's more the deck than than the supporting the fence. That's going to help support the deck structure. All right, that answers my concern.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that, too?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I would recommend you guys get a survey, at least for that line. I am a real estate agent, but I've seen houses, I mean, I've seen lines go through houses.
That picture showed, we didn't have
So,
This is
yeah,
Morgan.
so,
Yeah, 9.5 foot under house.
yeah. So anyway,
At least the kitchen.
there you go. And you can do, agreements that says, hey, his house, as long as it stands there, whatever. But I just recommend getting that. It just clears up a lot of gray area. I'm not
Right.
saying you have to. I just think it's a good idea, so you know
Right.
what, know where you
If we
are.
sell it, down the road and whatnot, we certainly want to,
'Cause
but the agreement, we felt.
I understand.
Especially, if you do follow through with redrafting the fence line agreement, notarizing it, and having it attached to the deed. It just squares it helps you dot your i's and cross your t's.
Yeah. Yeah, because a buyer might come and get a survey and say, hey, then they'll say, that fence is, but as it says, between you two guys, it's not, it's up to what you want to do, yeah.
Right. But the findings of fact seem fairly
Right. I
straightforward.
move that we accept the findings
And-
of facts as stated in the packet.
And I'll second that. So we have a motion to accept the findings of fact for this case, and we have a second. How do we vote on acceptance of findings of fact?
Aye.
Aye. Go ahead. Go ahead. Or do you have any other questions before we make a motion to grant the variance?
I was going to make the motion that we grant the variance with the condition that the agreement be notarized and filed with the circuit clerk as recommended by the planning department.
I didn't hear what you mumbled out, I really didn't.
I am so sorry.
Okay.
So sorry.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead. We're going to remove.
I
Go ahead.
was going to move that we accept the findings of fact.
Okay.
Grant the variance with the condition that the agreement be filed with the
Okay.
with the appropriate entity.
Okay, okay.
You know.
And duly notarized. All right, so, do you want to second that?
Second.
Second, so we have a motion to grant the variance, seconded by Ms. Cook. All those in favor of granting the variance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so your variance has been granted. Thank you for doing your due diligence. And we just want to state for the record, regardless of whether a request is approved or denied, Decisions of the board can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Montague County within 30 days upon written receipt from planning, Mr. Yeager's office, and any work done during that 30-day appeals process or period is done at your sole financial risk for both parties in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Have a good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move to announcements by staff.
Yes, Chair, just a couple of updates. First, thank you for the accommodation. I know this is not our regular meeting. Staff had the opportunity to attend the Mountain State Land Use Academy last
Oh,
week.
good. Oh, yeah, that's
So-
right.
Pardon me?
Oh, that's right, excellent.
Yes, absolutely. And it's always good to get colleagues together that are working on land use and policy issues together to learn and discuss and come up with better solutions to how to deal with some of the issues that we face as communities. But also just wanted to thank the WVU Law Clinic and the West Virginia chapter of the APA for putting that together and hosting that. Very much appreciated. Also like to welcome our special guest here, Matt, and I'm going to say, if I say your name, Misfelt? That's right, first time, all right. Matt has been recently appointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals as an alternate. And Matt and I met earlier this week to just kind of go over what the Board of Zoning Appeals does and its purview. And if Matt, you want to say anything, we just really
Yeah, please
welcome you
do.
on board and
Welcome.
really appreciate your service and willingness to volunteer to serve in this capacity. So.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'm just excited to get involved and learn how you guys operate here and help in any way I can.
Excellent, thank you.
Just a few other things. As of right now, I believe there's no new business for the June agenda, but I will keep you posted on that if that changes. And let me see. And there is one thing that we'll be bringing, I've been working with our city attorney on. There was a state law passed that made some requirements into the timing of when decisions have to be made when applications are brought to the Board of Zoning Appeals. So while you can table, obviously you can table something and need more information, reconsider it, there is now new deadlines that have to be met according to state law. So once we get a kind of a synopsis boiled down, we'll send that to you and share that in more detail.
Does that, but that doesn't affect like advertising the cases before?
No.
It's just
No,
the current session
Timeframe
and then
for
the
us.
timing of everything that follows from,
Correct. So when that, yes,
all right, thank you.
you're welcome. And that's all I have, sir.
I move that we adjourn.
I second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This meeting we've adjourned this meeting. Thank you very much.